Hi, Stephenie. Now that you've seen all of your characters assembled up there across that vast battlefield, could you tell us who, when you see them in the film, is closest to what you saw in your head when you were writing the books?
Right, Melissa and I were just talking about how hard it is to remember this. It's been a while. It's nice to see you, Laura. How are you doing? I think Lee Pace actually stood out as someone who really just was so much fun and really looked the part. Miana was really great as Tanya. She fit very nicely. So there were actually quite a few. Valerie as Charlotte looked really great. So there were a lot. They did a really good job of sort of matching the descriptions this time.
I was just curious from all three of you, what was your reaction to seeing the vampire effects for the first time?
On this movie or the first one?
No, this one, sorry. Bella's vampire effects.
Well, it's interesting with effects. You start by seeing very, very rough concepts. So you get into the process of giving notes, and almost by the time that they're finished in the movie, you're at that point going, they look good to me, but I can't remember what it felt like the first time I saw them. You know, I really liked the way Bill handled her shield. I thought that was a kind of a subtle effect, but it was visually representing what we needed to, to have it represent in the movie. So, all in all, when you're standing on set in Louisiana in a giant stage with nothing but fake white snow on the ground, it's hard to imagine that it's ultimately going to look like this battlefield that, the meeting field that Stephenie had described. So I think we're really happy with the way that part turned out.
Well, and I think we talk about Bella as a vampire. The effects, when we first saw it, there wasn't anything, but the performance was really marked from the first time she put in the contacts. It was the Christmas scene, actually, the first time we got to see her, and I know I was nervous because, is it going to be different? Is it going to feel like something new? And I was so impressed with her. I remember we were standing around the monitors doing little, very quiet, happy dances because we didn't want to mess things up. We're like, hey, look at her go. She was really awesome. So that part was really pronounced from the very beginning.
Hi, over here. For all three of you, can you speak about the changes that are being made to the ending of the movie that I read about that is supposed to be kind of an alternate ending?
Well, I wouldn't call it an alternate ending. Hi, Caleb. How are you? It's nice to see all these familiar faces again. Melissa and I sat down when we first were talking about, are we going to make Breaking Dawn into a movie? Will it be one or two? What are we going to do? And the end was something that we knew had to be cracked. And we sat there and hashed it out and came up with something that I wouldn't consider an alternate ending. In a way, I feel like it's kind of off-screen in the novel because we only see what Bella sees. And this was just a way of making visual what some of the other characters might have been seeing. It does feel very surprising. I still, watching it, still have that moment where I go, oh, right, we did that, didn't we? So, I mean, there's something new to see, but to me, it doesn't feel like it's going like hugely off the page at all.
No, and I remember that moment. That was one of my most fond memories, was sitting in that steakhouse with you and Megan. We're both going, I don't know how to do this. I don't know, should we do it? I don't even know. How do you make a cinematic ending without violating the storytelling of the book? And then we just hit on it kind of at the same time over these juicy steaks. And I was just like, it was like that moment of, it's one of the exciting moments for writers is, that moment of inspiration. And we shared that at that moment. It was just like, this is a movie, we can do this.
Hi, Stephenie. What is going to be next after all this success? And as a writer, when do you write? During the night or during the day? Or can you tell us about that?
That actually is one of my huge challenges right now because I write best at night, no question asked. I can focus. You're not getting any phone calls. I can shut everything down. And I'm just more creative at night. My kids get up really early. Really, really early for school. And so right now I'm trying really hard to write during the day. I'm not very good at it. It's like one word every 15 minutes. It's driving me crazy. So that's something I'm trying to get better at. With what's next, after this, it's hard even to think beyond the next couple of days, actually, because it feels like this is a really big hurdle or ending or whatever it is. when I'm done with that, the host is in progress and moving along, and that's like my next exciting thing.
Hi, everyone. This question's for Stephenie and Melissa specifically. There's a lot of humor infused into the second half of this. How did you two find the balance between that humor and sort of the serious nature of what's going on?
I don't know. I feel like humor is a part of life, and for me, it's always. I don't think it comes through as much in the novels as it does in my head. Pretty much everything's tongue in cheek in my head, but I love that there's more humor kind of coming through, and I think that you probably agree that Bill Condon has a natural touch for sort of bringing that out. But the scripts were funny. It was there.
The characters lent themselves to that. When you start moving, Breaking Dawn 1 was a very emotional story, but this one starts moving into action, and it's a much bigger story, and you have all these characters that you created in the book, and they're fun. The character of Garrett, as with Lee Pace. that's just someone who you can throw lines at, and you want that kind of back and forth. It's in keeping with the pace of the action of the movie.
Yeah. Well, I thought Taylor really emerged as he's got some good comedy in him. I love watching him when he's doing funny.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him do that again.
I know,
Right?
Start writing.
Hey, I'm not the only one who can write movies for Taylor, okay?
Hello. This is for Stephenie. Thinking back to that first press conference that we did way back in 2008, that was one of the questions that you were asked that you seemed kind of apprehensive about, was how the character of Nessie would be portrayed in a film. And can you talk about sort of the discussions that went into how to do that, and what you thought about the final result of using the one actress, Mackenzie?
That was a really big discussion early in, and Wyck you were a big part of that, trying to figure out, can we make this look good? And it was a discussion. We looked at younger actresses, but you needed this person who could have meaningful conversations with her parents, who we would believe in these really hard scenes. And it didn't take them too long to convince me that, we'll just age her up faster, and we'll have what was Mackenzie, 9 and then 10 on set, right? And then after we saw Mackenzie, it just really, for me and Bill anyway, it wasn't a question anymore. We're like, well, this is how it's going to be done. We're gonna do it with Mackenzie in whatever way we have to. And I think it turned out. The emotion is there. It's an interesting thing for me to look at it, because I've seen the man behind the curtain, and you get a little distracted by, oh, is that the robot hand?
And that's the other thing is that because Renesmee is kind of supernaturally wise in some ways, having an actress who's 9 playing all of the articulations of Renesmee from looking 6 months old till 10 was great, because we could do performance capture with her and sort of de-age her onto kind of the proper scale that we needed to for the times. But it was challenging. I think one of the most challenging aspects of this movie.
Oh, I think so, absolutely.
In the back, right here. I'm going to ask the woo-woo question, if you don't mind. And I'm looking at the press notes here. I had heard this before, but you went to bed one night, you had a vivid dream about 2 characters you couldn't get out of your head. Did you ever feel like you were being visited?
I think inspiration probably always feels like that. Sometimes ideas feel like they were already there and that you're just discovering them. So I don't know that I thought of it that way, but it definitely was a much more persistent idea than many I'd had before, and something that I was just wrapped up in and intrigued with. It was a really great summer. It was probably one of the best summers of my life when I got to just live in Forks for the first time.
How long did you deny their voices before you actually committed them to paper?
Not 15 minutes. My babies were little then, and my memory was trash. And I enjoyed that little story in my head so much. I woke up from it, I sat there and imagined the conversation, how it would have gone, what would have happened next. And I thought, I'm going to forget this by tonight. And so as soon as the kids were fed, I started typing it out just to help me remember. So pretty instantaneous.
Hey guys. Stephenie, Edward spends much of the series resisting the idea of turning Bella, but it seems like it's a pretty awesome thing. Like, you live forever and you can still have friends and family, superpowers. Even Jacob mentions that Bella seems like herself after she's been turned. To you, is there any downside in being a vampire in this universe? And also, what do you see vampirism as a metaphor for?
Well, with Edward, I think he resists happiness a lot in the first 3 books. He's afraid that he doesn't deserve it. He's seen a few examples of people being turned into vampires and not being very happy with it. And so, and he's not entirely happy with it himself. You know, he always feels like he didn't have a choice. And is he now, by definition, a villain, a bad person? And he doesn't want Bella to feel that way. He doesn't know. I mean, in retrospect, it works great for her, and she's perfectly happy. And if he'd known it would have gone so well, he probably would have not been so resistant. But for him, he's a very cautious person, and becoming a vampire is forever. You don't get to change your mind about it later. And I think for me, that's one of the big drawbacks. Anything that's permanent, how do you know how you're going to feel in 5 years, 10 years? I mean, even with like a tattoo, right? You know, the things that I loved 10 years ago, I'm really glad I did not tattoo on my body because I don't want them now. So, I mean, permanence is a very scary thing to me, I think, on things that don't change at all. As a metaphor, I don't know, vampirism for me was a way to live in fantasy and kind of have superpowers, but not just in a really perfect, happy, oh, everything is great. It's superpowers with a cost. It's having to be the villain, and what do you do about that?
Hi. What was the day like, the last day of shooting, and does this feel like a graduation and it's almost coming to an end? How does it feel that this family and this story is on this
last day of shooting was great.
Was it the wedding reception?
No, the last day was when we were in St. Thomas.
Oh,
yeah.
that took the cake. Yeah, we finished the entire series of movies in St. Thomas on a beach as dawn broke, and it was pretty great. You know, just Rob and Kristen and a small crew on sort of shooting that midnight swim, and then we all got to hang out for a few more days and celebrate.
Yeah, we had a really great time. It was a really nice ending, actually, because it was just kind of there were just a few of us. We all got to hang out and be very relaxed because we knew it was over. It was a beautiful way to end up filming a movie. All movies should end in St. Thomas.
Stephenie, this right here. This is a question for you. And did you ever consider the future generation, being Renesmee and Jacob's babies, half wolf, one half human, one half vampire? How do you picture that?
Well, I mean, I had planned out where it would go for a couple more books. So I know exactly what would happen, whether it was, I mean, there are other characters that I think would have had a lot of voice in those coming stories. I don't know. Maybe someday I'll write it out just for myself. We'll see. It was fun. It's hard right now because I had just been asked if the actors had gotten into my head as the characters. And while I was writing Breaking Dawn, they hadn't, because I'd written a rough draft of that so much earlier, long before they were cast. But now they are in my head when I work on the stories, and it's hard for me to disassociate, and that does feel like it's a little corrupted, so it makes it more difficult. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm not into permanence, so I wouldn't say no, absolutely. I'm not going to do it today. I don't know how I'm going to feel in 5 years.
We keep sending her the George Lucas press releases.
Star Wars
Hi,
7.
Stephenie. Hi, Stephenie. I'm Sherry with Cafe Mom, and I was just wondering how you felt about the portrayal of the mother-child relationship between Bella and Renesmee, and how you think Kristen handled the role as a mom, and Rob, for that matter, as a dad.
For people who have never been parents, they were impressive. Kristen, before we ever got to set, she had already sort of put herself in that mindset, and she and Mackenzie had a really great relationship. And it was funny because she would go to Bill all the time and be like, I should be looking at Renesmee in this scene. I should be focused. I need to be oriented around her. She was just the mother bear was who she was. She was such a protective, all-consumed kind of mother. And I thought that came through really well. And Rob had the easygoing dad. Like, I think whenever they were together in a scene, he and Mackenzie are laughing about something. It's really, really sweet. And Mackenzie's, like the most lovable kid in the whole world. I think all of us on set just naturally sort of wanted to hang out with her and bond with her, and she was very easy to love. I think she made it easy for both Kristen and Rob to feel that way about her.
Stephenie, returning to the sort of George Lucas Star Wars model, would you be willing to let people play in the Twilight universe, tell stories maybe of characters from their past since they have such long lives? Like, are you willing to let that world open up for other creators to kind of mess around in?
I don't know. I've been pretty hands-on. It's a hard thing. I'm going to be the same way when my kids go off to college or whatnot. I'm a hands-on mom, and these characters really do feel like my kids in some ways, and it's hard to have them doing things that don't sound like them, I've had a couple, not with the movies, but with some other things, like seeing other people's versions of what the characters speak like, and it just doesn't seem right. And so I don't know if that would ever be something that I'd be fine with. Again, in 10 years, who knows, right? You're right under the lights, by the way. I feel like I can't see you at all.
Hey, this question's for Wyck. When I spoke with you at the Breaking Dawn premiere, you mentioned that you had been working with Rob on possibly producing something he had written. Is that still in the works? Can you speak to that at all or give us an update?
No, I mean, let's stay focused on this. I think for all of us, we love all the actors we've had the opportunity to work with, and are always looking for other opportunities for them, both from the studio standpoint and producers and writers. So.
Other franchises such as Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter's, after those they've wrapped their movies, they've gone on to do things like sites where the fans can come and visit props, costume displays, things like that. Any thoughts to doing something like that with Breaking Dawn? Get to sit in the Volturi thrones or something like that.
You'd need the marketing team in here for that question. That's not. These people make movies from the beginning. Then your job is done.
Last question.
Hi. I actually just wanted to talk about the exacerbation of the character, Alistair. It seemed like he served as kind of to move the focus of the arc, to make the pressure of the situation mount a little bit more. Can you talk about, Melissa, specifically you, of how you came to develop that character more?
I followed the guide of the book. I mean, Alistair's character in the book serves that role very much so. It's a great counterbalance to all of the characters who are sort of gearing up for the fight. Then you have this naysayer in the background who's constantly reminding us, this isn't just some fun, fight fest. This is death and probably will end badly. He's certain it will end badly. And as played by Joe Anderson, I mean, this character is delicious. And that's also where we get some of the humor out from as well. Is that just, it's not going to work,
Okay, thank you all very much. That was terrific. Thank you.